It is May 14th, 2026. I have the camera backwards, so I'm looking this way instead of at the thing. What do I even say? Let me read the inside cover. Nnedi Okorafor prefers to be called AO. To her, these initials have always stood for artificial organism. AO has never really felt natural, and that's putting it lightly. Her parents spent most of the days before she was born praying for her peaceful passing, because even in utero she was wrong. But she lived. Then came the car accident years later that disabled her even further. Yet instead of viewing her strange body the way the world views it, as freakish, unnatural, even the work of the devil, AO embraces all that she is, a woman with a ton of major and necessary body augmentations. And then one day she goes to her local market and everything goes wrong. Once on the run, she meets a Fulani herdsman named DNA, and the race against time across the deserts of northern Nigeria begins. In a world where all things are streamed, everyone is watching the reckoning of the murderess and the terrorist and the saga of the wicked woman and the madman unfold. This fast-paced, relentless journey of tribe, destiny, body, and the wonderland of technology revels in the fact that the future sometimes isn't so predictable. Expect the unaccepted. Let me look at the back cover. Nope, that's just about. This is one of the worst books I have read in a long fucking time, and that summary gave me so much hope. I'm like, finally, a book about a disabled character who's you know, everything that thing just told us. No, that is not even remotely. I'm beyond words at this point. This is terrible in every way you can think of, including literally being anti-black racist and white supremacist. First of all, we are told just as word of God, because it's never contradicted, and this is not stated to frame the character as being a bigot. We're told that a bunch of black people who attacked this guy were probably cannibals, based on nothing, simply because they are black. And we're told they were probably cannibals, that then they probably cannibalized people just to show how evil they are. That's stated with word of God fucking authority, not to show that the character's a bad person. The character doesn't say that out loud to be called out by anybody else. That's just word of God. Okay, there's literally so many things wrong with this in just the bigotry that I'm just gonna have to list them in random order, and I'm probably going to forget things. So we got calling black people cannibals. Saying that if you are a disabled person with agonizing chronic pain, you shouldn't ever take pain medication, because pain medication, that makes you weak. And the pain medication actually stops you from magically curing your disability that's causing you the agony. You have to walk through that fire of chronic pain in order to be magically cured. So if you take pain medication because you have chronic pain, that means you're weak and it's your own fault you're disabled. I'm not joking. The protagonist is a fucking cyborg. We never, ever, ever confront the classism in the fact that she is privileged beyond belief to have literally been able, her family, the fact that her family could get her these goddamn cybernetics to keep her alive when she was a baby who should not have been able to survive being born and would not have been able to survive without these cybernetic XYZs. We never discussed the classism and inherent goddamn privilege in that. And the book literally tells us that the other disabled people who were born like her, that didn't become cyborgs, the quote is, "Are they still alive? If you can call that living," says another character. And our main character doesn't immediately snap back and say, "Why would you fucking say that about someone?" No, that's also stated with word of fucking God authority. So if you're a disabled person and you're too poor to become a fucking magical cyborg, well, you're not really living. And if you take pain medication, it makes you weak, and it's your own fault you're disabled. This is supposed to be a story about a disabled woman who accepts herself and isn't ashamed of being disabled, but she's literally not actually disabled, because the fucking shit that makes her a goddamn cyborg also literally magically cured all of her disabilities. And the only negative fucking side effects is she has plot-relevant headaches that go away and don't actually fucking do anything because she has plot armor. And there was one fucking interesting side effect from being a cyborg that we were told, but only happened off screen and was fixed before this shit started, that sometimes the processors that connect all of her stuff would glitch and make things seem to be going in backwards order. So we were given the example of, like as a kid or something, she was trying to cross the street, but all of a sudden that glitch happened and all of the cars seemed to be going in backwards order. Like, that's great. Can we talk about that? But no, that's fixed. That was fixed like a decade or something ago. That was fixed long before the story started. By the time the story starts, she, not only is she, I just beyond words. The summary promises so much and then delivers literally nothing, and this was also just absolutely terribly written. This was not edited. This has to be a first draft. A first draft that not a single fucking person looked at, even though this was traditionally published. This was published by fucking Doll Books, whatever the fuck that is. This was, and they were in 2001 when this came out, they were charging $27 for this pile of, I didn't even talk about, okay, $27 for this, and it's only 211 pages, and the font isn't even really small, so they're not even fitting a crap ton of text on each of those pages. And the bigotry, I almost forgot. She's doing the same fucking white supremacist shit that Incomplete List, Edgar Rice Burroughs, author of Tarzan, and Anne McCaffrey, original author of The Dragon Riders of Pern, do, where they say, yeah, white people are actually, and, Avatar, so many other things, saying that white people are better at being indigenous than the actual indigenous people in question. I think this was page 140. Let me fucking go back. There's a white man in here who's a wizard and is the only real person to do magic in all of Africa. And our main character literally says that this white man was so magical, he probably spoke 1,000 languages. He probably spoke Igbo better than I do. And this is stated with word of God authority. Literally saying that a white man is the only true magic user in all of Africa, and that he's literally better at being an indigenous person to Africa than the actual African woman. He speaks Igbo better than I do. The most generous interpretation you could give for this is that she's trying to do a reversal of the magical black person trope, but what's coming through instead is the trope of indigenous or white people are better at being indigenous than actual indigenous people. A thing that's no. there's so much bigotry in this. Can't even remember all of it. I'll just list them off. Misogyny, ableism, anti-blackness, racism in general, anti-indigenous racism, specifically in the form of not only saying white people are better at being indigenous than the actual indigenous people in question, but we also say that there's the indigenous people, that the other main calling these people characters is an insult. I am just beyond words. This is so fucking terrible. The writing is unbelievably bad. This has to be a first draft. There are so many blatant continuity errors that you can't convince me that anybody read this before it was published. Like 6 times at least, we have, the characters are walking. They decide they're going to take a break. They're sitting on the ground. Chatting. While they take a break from walking, they start talking. All of a sudden, the character stops walking because her arm hurts. But they weren't walking because we were very specifically told they were sitting down. Then, not long after that, we're told they walked past a big parking lot. Then all of a sudden, they're taking a break again in that big parking lot, even though we were just told that they walked half a mile past it, at least. Very specifically, they'd walked half a mile past the giant parking lot, but all of a sudden, nope, they're actually back in the parking lot. And the quote-unquote inciting incident, which was so badly written, I can't even tell you what actually happened. I was thinking, okay, the continuity errors, is that on purpose? Or because at the front of the book we'd been told about that side effect that doesn't actually exist within the book, that she used to have a glitch where time would seem to run backwards for a few seconds because of the perception going to all this shit and how she processes everything. I was thinking, okay, when the inciting incident is happening, I'm like, okay, is this on purpose? Is this foreshadowing that the glitch isn't actually gone? Is this foreshadowing that her perception of the world is extremely skewed? But nope, no. It wasn't on purpose, and I was highly doubting that it was on purpose to begin with, just from what I'd already read, and no, it wasn't on purpose. It's just bad writing. There is... I don't even have words, but... Okay. I found a bunch of her short stories online that she shared for free 4 weeks ago at this point, so I've been reading all of them on my phone because they're free. So I'm like, okay, I'll read the short stories first, and then I'll read, well, this is not Death of the Author, this is Noor. But I was like, okay, I'll read Death of the Author, because we got that. And then I went to the library and found this. And I was like, okay, I'll just get that. There were problems in the short stories, but I was willing to give them a pass, because there wasn't any really obvious blatant bigotry, and the writing problems I could chalk up to, this is free, I'm not being charged money for it, so I won't complain. But the problems in the short stories of just characters that have no depth and whose motivations don't make sense and really stilted dialogue, that just continues into the published novels, apparently, and this was not free. I'm borrowing it from my library, but whoever paid for this, if it was the library, or if it was somebody who donated to the library, they had to pay $27 plus tax, plus shipping if they bought it online, plus whatever markup the bookstore they in particular went to got it at, and that's a fucking scam. If I looked up Nnedi Okorafor on Wikipedia to see how old she was when I got to 30 pages in, because I'm like, okay, at the very least, she has to be really young, right? This has to be, like, one of the very first things she's written. I keep falling for this trap where I am giving people the benefit of the doubt as for why they are such terrible writers, despite being traditionally published. And guess how old she is? She's not, like, 20 or anything like that. She's 52. This was only published in 2021. She's 52 in 2026, if I remember the Wikipedia page right, and she's been writing since she was 13, so if you asked me to guess the age of who wrote this, I would guess that it was like a high schooler at most, like a freshman in high school. I would not guess that a fully grown adult who has been writing since she was 13 wrote this. This is written so fucking badly. Not even just the blatant lack of editing, with the really blatant continuity errors. And I mentioned, literally, like, we were told that the character fell asleep against a cow. Then the cow stood up, so she stood up with the cow. The cow walked away. Then just a few paragraphs later, she takes a step backward and trips over the cow that she forgot was lying down behind her. But it wasn't lying down behind her because the cow had stood up and moved away, which is why she was on her feet. That keeps happening. And I literally cannot tell you what the inciting incident actually was, because it's also filled with continuity errors. So I don't know what actually did happen, or what was supposed to be happening, besides the fact that she's just made the superpowered oppressed trope, where the oppressed people are actually legitimately dangerous and scary. You can't hurt a fucking cyborg in the setting because, you know, cyborgs, disabled people, we are actually super duper scary and dangerous. We can overpower you without even thinking about it. And this is the book that promised me that it was going to be celebrating physically disabled people, but no. All of that shit about disability that we hear in the summary, that all happened before the story starts, and we don't actually get to see any of it. We just get told it at complete random. And also, despite it being a book supposed to be about disability, accessibility sure as goddamn fuck wasn't even remotely a concern, because there's entire chapters in italics, which gave me a fucking headache to read for no reason. Because it's badly written, because it's very clearly a fucking first draft that wasn't edited. This is beyond words. I regret everything. We spent money buying Death of the Author, and I had somebody tell me, just a heads up, that one's even worse. She apparently outdoes herself with the bad writing and the ableism. And I've also heard that in another of her series, I don't remember the name of that one, but she has an albino character, and albinism is a fucking disability that gives you light sensitivity, among so many other things. And then the albino character has her disability magically fucking cured, so that she's not disabled anymore. This isn't how you celebrate disability. This is just... There's, like, literal eugenics shit in here with fucking authority. I'm beyond words. I am so fucking disappointed. I heard so many fucking great things about her, and I read that fucking inside summary and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking love that. But no, it's just another book that fucking hates disabled people even though the author is disabled. What? There needs to be some kind of fucking thing where the summary that you're allowed to post of your book has to be fucking approved by, I don't know, a certain number of the audience who's actually read it, because this is false fucking advertising. And if you're disabled, you shouldn't read this. don't read this. Probably don't read anything by this fucking author, because now that I've actually started talking about my bafflement and then anger about what the fuck is going on in this book, now people are saying, oh, by the way, that she's pretty fucking infamous for being really ableist and not even remotely good at writing, and yeah, looking up her name on YouTube wasn't giving me any results saying, by the way, be fucking warned about all of the bigotry, including ableism, even though it's supposed to be a book about uplifting disabled people. No, it's not. And we already paid for Death of the Author last month, so that means I'm going to have to fucking read it. And then I guess I'll donate it to the library, and they can have other library goers suffer the way I have. That's terrible. That's terrible. I'm reading the about. She was a professor of creative writing at Chicago State University. Let me find the one fucking... The writing... It's so bad. It's so fucking bad. Characters will be suddenly screaming and screeching and yelling and then whispering, all in the same conversation. It is just fucking nonsensical. The plot literally grinds to a halt multiple chapters in a row because she just suddenly stops to give us a whole chapter in italics of backstory that doesn't do anything and is literally not relevant in any goddamn way. Plot points are brought up, never dealt with. They just disappear because she forgot she said that. We're told, the character's boyfriend just broke up, maybe fiance just broke up with her for some mysterious reason, and then we are never actually given the fucking reason, even though that's like held up as a really big deal, and then it's just forgotten about. There's so many things wrong with this book, and I can't even begin to explain them all. But if you feel bad about your writing, if you are not a bigot, if you are happy to and willing to hire or at least find and then barter with sensitivity readers and beta readers, and you actually listen to feedback, and you want to not be a bigot, and you think eugenics is bad at the very goddamn least, and you don't say that black people are probably cannibals, you don't need to feel bad about your writing, because books like this are getting traditionally published, and they're being sold for $27 for 211 pages of shit that was not fucking edited, that has no substance. I'm beyond words. Alright.